Zuri, I see you. What up?
KO. My God. How's it been?
Been good, man. Just same old mortgage stuff. Living. Dad.
Yeah. Billy's a dad. It's amazing. So I was driving here and I was thinking, and I was like, I've shot a couple of these now, and I was excited for this one because, for one, like, your story and my story kind of coincides, and I don't think that I've ever peeled back the curtain. I don't know how much you've ever peeled back the curtain to the public. To like, this is the conversation that movement wanted. But nah, man, like, I've known you for, I don't even know. We were probably like, what, 7, 8, 9 years old when we first met. Grew up playing sports, graduated to partying and chasing girls as, teenagers, all the way up to, mortgages and business. And, now you're sitting here, we're in our 30s, you're a father.
Yep.
So it's been a wild journey. Super glad and appreciative that, you're willing to take the time out your busy schedule, because I know trying to hit 200 million, requires a lot of dedication. But want to get into it. So I really want to kind of skip the early years. We could say that conversation for, when I start drinking again.
I'm just happy you're not going to bring up the 98 to 18.
Well, I wasn't going to, but high school sports, yeah. Shout out the Walsh Eagles, one of the worst losses in history. 98 to 18, game one of our state championship run. But
athletic Chris White, I think, did a boxing one on me, and I touched the ball.
Yep, we was face guarding you. Y'all scored first too. Eric Wepley went right to the bucket, 2-0, right on Jake.
Yeah.
But nah, man. So I just start with, I know your dad was on the car dealership growing up. You were always business minded. Talk about a little bit just where your mentality comes from and those early years, and what even led you into getting into mortgages.
Yeah, man. So obviously, my dad and brother were huge in the car business. That's literally was the dinner conversation for the, first 18 years of my life. And so obviously was around the business. I can remember, my dad would call me, one summer and be like, "Hey, that Parks and Rec job that you had lined up for this summer, yeah, you can't do that this summer." "Oh, why is that, Dad?" "I fired my detailer. You're going to come wash cars." So obviously, learned at a young age, work ethic and seeing him work and stuff, that was instilled in me in a very young age. My uncle was also very blue collar and had a crazy work ethic. So I think seeing that growing up definitely influenced me. And that's probably where I got, some of the work ethic. But I think also I was more sports oriented, where my dad and brother were super into, the car business. And I think that's what to this day motivates me more than anything, is just the competitive drive of achievement and leveling up. And, in the mortgage business, I think everyone's motivated by money to some degree, right? But that obviously wears off after a while. And I'd tell you, to this day, just checking the leaderboard of where I rank within our company and where I rank across the country, that really is what motivates me. And I think that stems from sports more than anything, just, the will to win and just hating to lose.
Yeah, I mean, I remember, growing up, you were always a huge Kobe fan, and I feel like you have your own version of that Mamba mentality. And that's something that I think I admire and respect most about you, is your will to win is unmatched. And I think that ultimately is what separates you from even me. I'm saying? I've had, my highs and lows within this industry myself, but on a consistent basis, day in and day out, I don't know too many people, if anybody at all, in my life that outwork you. Yeah. And I feel like I outwork 98% of my peers, right. But there may be days where, I have a better day than you, but on that day-to-day basis, you're relentless. And I think that ultimately is, from my perspective, how you've gotten, where you've gotten in its simplest form.
Right. 100%, man. I feel like, a lot of people within our company ask me, what's led to the, success in the mortgage business. And I coach a bunch of loan officers now, and, everyone's looking for the secret sauce and the shortcut, and in the most simplistic form, like you said, it's so cliche, but it's truly, consistency and discipline. Everyone says it. These coaches on TikTok, make all this money to go online and say that, but that's truly what it boils down to. And being able to perform when you're not motivated, I think it's the hardest thing in the world to do, but also the easiest thing in the world to do once you like flip the switch in your mind where you're just like, I'm doing this, it doesn't matter. My feelings don't matter. Alarm clock goes off at 4 or 5 in the morning. Everyone in America's feelings are going to say, go back to bed, that warm, cozy bed. But at the end of the day, you got to find that way to flip the switch to like overcome the battle in your mind. And I think that's truly what separates people.
No, for sure. One book, I think you actually gave me the book Miracle Morning. Hal Elrod worked for Cutco, which is based out of Olean. And I remember we had just moved to Pittsburgh, and I'm pretty sure you gave me that book, and I read that book and it changed my whole life. I went from, if I had to be at work at 9, I was waking up at 8:30, jumping in the shower, like still half asleep, to now I'm up at 4 or 5 in the morning, getting to the gym. I'm getting 2-3 hours in before anybody else even gets up.
Yeah, with the wrinkled ass shirt too. We'd have GMAC iron your shirt before your appointment for you. So.
Hey, man, I was rough around the edges. Still am. But talk about like, I know you moved to Pittsburgh initially from Olean and got into, I don't know what you were doing, but you're in the auto business, like similar to your father. And then you when you moved to Houston is when you got into mortgages. So like, talk about just kind of that transition and what made you want to jump or make the jump into a new industry. I think mortgages just kind of fell on your lap. Yeah. But talk about that.
Yeah, man. So after college, I went into an internship. Well, it was actually while I was in college. I did an internship with Community Bank, just simply to fulfill hours. And I think it was in our master's program, you had to have a couple hours of intern or whatever. And my dad was connected with Dick Heydrich, who was the guy that was overseeing basically like auto finance. So like the car dealership, someone needs a car, they got to get a loan on that car, and, they had a relationship. So basically got me an intern job to fulfill the hours. And then that ended up turning into a full-time position where I was basically a loan officer for auto loans. So my job was to, review credit reports, work with car dealerships, and basically approve auto loans all day. And I did that for couple years, I think two years in Olean. And then they were trying to expand their footprint into Pittsburgh. And I was like, never left home, college in the hometown and stuff. I'm like, I'm ready to get out of Olean, New York, and they had a position to go down to Pittsburgh and basically cold call on dealers. We had a couple of dealers already in the Pittsburgh region. So I, would call on those and try to develop more business, but basically moved here without really knowing anybody. And from that point, just started prospecting car dealers to try to get them to work with, our bank. And I did that for about a year. And Community Bank is a phenomenal financial institution, but they're pretty old school in how they do their compensation and stuff. So I remember like going to my boss at the time, like asking for a raise, like, man, I need to make 6 figures this year. If you don't provide a path to that, man, I'm basically going to look. And I don't know what got into me. Like I'd been in there like 2 years, like who am I making demands, but I just had such a clear target that I wanted to hit that mark. I'm like, man, if I can just hit 6 figures, that's all I ever want. It's all I ever need. I'm gonna be good. That's it. And that was coming off my early days at Community Bank. I mean, 30K first year, second year, 38K, So I'm like, yeah, man, 6 figures, that's the milestone. And so long story short, that turned into me just going on LinkedIn and applying for jobs. And I remember to this day, I was just applying for jobs in warm states. So Texas, Cali, Carolinas, Florida, Atlanta, all over the place, as long as it was warm. I was like, I lived in Olean, I moved to Pittsburgh. It's still freaking cold here. Like, let's try to find something a little warmer. And long story short, that ended up taking me out to an interview in Texas, where the job ad just said 6-figure, higher income, commission potential, and I'm like, I don't care what it was. Like, I applied for it, went out and interviewed, and I'm like, the boss there was basically like guaranteed 6 figures as long as I put in the work. So just took a chance, man, and ended up being a mortgage job. So I wasn't looking for mortgage. Mortgage wasn't looking for me. It was more so, having that targeted goal of 6 figures and then just taking a huge risk. And I packed my bags and moved to Houston, Texas, and got into the mortgage game.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember. So I was still in college at that time playing football. And I had came off my best year, 1,000-yard year, broke a bunch of school records. And I had just graduated, and I was literally about to go back to school and start a master's degree that I knew I didn't care for. I had no intentions on actually, following through with, just to play football, to go back for 1 year. My counterpart, Mike Doherty, had just went to UB's pro day, this, that, and the third. I ended up tearing my MCL over the summer. And you and I obviously have been in conversation, and I hit you up, and I remember like you kept ingraining 6 figures, 6 figures, 6 figures in my head. And at that time, like, I think I don't know what my uncle was making, but I didn't have anybody around me who I knew of that I could, readily just spew off that was making 6 figures. But, you kept talking about it. And it was just like the idea of making 6 figures was like the holy grail to a 23-year-old with no idea what he wants to do.
Not a dollar in his bank account,
So I was interning at Dresser over the summer, and like I hit you up, what I'm saying? We were, like I said, still in contact. Like, yo, I don't know what I'm about to do. You had kept saying you was about to make 6 figures. I'm like, yo, it's good. You're like, yo, I might be able to get you a job. And you set it up so that I was able to come down, shadow you. So I flew down to Houston, literally, I think like a week after I tore my MCL, flew down there, shadow with you. And then I think at that point, like, you had kind of just gotten through the initial stages of like the bumps and bruises of, really learning that first part of the mortgages, and you were just starting to really close loans. And now it was like, I don't know if you were hitting 6 figures that year, but you were damn close if you weren't. And, I decided to take the leap. So 6 months, I think you had been there for maybe a year or maybe 6 months.
It was like remember. 6 months, yeah.
And then I jumped in with you, and then, I think at that point you had just came off your first stint of like working every single day for like 2-3 months. And to that point, like I said, I'm still the dude that wakes up every day for a 9 o'clock appointment at 8:30, 8:45, shows up half asleep, late probably, and we get down there, and I just want you to kind of describe, because I know what it was like, but that first process of like, fuck mortgages, just learning like truly how to grind. I think that's something that, like, even before you learned a mortgage, you learned that work ethic and dedication and that grind of mandatory 9-to-9 schedules and all the rest of it. So just kind of touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I think the craziest thing was like, I mean, this mortgage shop we worked in was probably like the closest, like, 2009. What year was that?
We were there in 15. I moved to Houston in September of 15.
Yeah, so 2000. This was the closest thing to like 2015, like Wolf of Wall Street, like work environment. And I'll never forget. Like it was like my first or second day. The boss comes over and just throws down like the USDA guideline pamphlet that's like 1 billion pages long, and is like, here you go. Yep. And then literally like 3 days later, all right, you're on the phone. And you're just calling. And I remember, I think it was like at the end of my first or second week, we basically were all working out of these dialers and CRMs where our boss could see how quick we made the phone call, how quick we followed up, whether we converted the lead or not. And I remember like I can't remember the guy's name, but my second week in, my boss, our boss called like a meeting. I think this may have been before you were there, and brought all the salespeople into like the pit and basically like called this one dude out for not like making his calls and like fired him on the spot in front of like everyone. And I'm like, holy shit, like this is intense. Like I'm in the middle of the country. I don't know anyone. I got to pay my rent. I got a car payment. You know, it was very high. It was just commission. There was no like base or anything. So that was just, I was scared shitless, to be very honest. Is I was so scared that like that forced me into overdrive on the work schedule. And I'm like, I'm not the smartest dude. I don't know mortgages, but I'm going to just make sure I'm not outworked. And it was just like the first one in, last one out mentality. And like you said, I mean, it was basically 9 to 9. Monday through Friday. I think I would get in at 7 and leave at 10. I would bring my dinner to the office. Sometimes I would sneak home on my lunch break. And then Saturdays were typically a little bit lighter. Like
I think it was like 10 to 6.
10 to 6. Yeah. People would come in a little bit later on Saturday, but normally there till 6. And then Sundays I would work from home and we would just follow up on all the leads. So Sundays were typically probably like 10 to 5 roughly. And I mean, my first 3 months of doing that, I dropped like, I think it was like 30 or 40 pounds. Yeah. Like Brock Thomas ended up coming out, my college buddy, and lived with us. And I remember his mom coming out and she was like, what's wrong with Kevin? I just lost all this weight, and it was just from the stress and stuff. But it was like going through that, I call it mortgage boot camp and like mortgage hell. And it just taught this crazy work ethic that very few people would have lasted in. I mean, I only made it for a year. Yeah. You know, you probably made it for about 6 months under that model, because like we both left at the same time, and I think I only worked there for about a year roughly. Yeah. But I always wonder to this day, like if I wouldn't have gone to Houston and learned in that environment, like how would have that molded me today? And there's other people killing it that worked in that same shop. Alex Rayner, he's one of the top loan officers in the state of Texas. Shout out to Alex. Like the dude is crushing it. And he started like a week or two after me. We still chat to this day. And obviously you've had great success, and there's been a couple others that have done well. And it's almost like that molded us. So as much as like, the person leading that shop, I don't think was probably the best mentor for life, but he did instill a lot of things. Like I remember it was almost like we were mind washed, man. We'd be sitting in his office, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night on a Tuesday, listening to Tony Robbins audio tapes for an hour, like just saying like, and it motivated the hell out of me, you know? So it was a crazy, crazy experience that to this day, like I give a lot of credit to, having the opportunity to work in that and get that start, because I probably wouldn't be the same person today without that experience.
Yeah. I think that especially coming from like a sports background, like, I always relate things back to sports because that's all I knew growing up. But it was literally, like you said, boot camp. Like it was training camp, like 2-a-days. Yeah. You're putting that in. And I remember, I don't think we really ever talk about this after the fact, but it got to a point where me and you was nose to nose one day, because I remember it was a Saturday. And again, I'm still super fresh into this business and learning the work ethic. And this is all getting thrown at me out of nowhere. You had just gotten into it, so you were a little accustomed to it. But there was a Saturday where we were supposed to work, and for whatever reason, I must have got the schedule wrong, but I showed up before everybody and no one else was there. So I'm like, I think I knew that we still had work, but I wanted to believe in my head that we didn't. So I went to the mall because we was about to leave for Christmas break or whatever. I was going home for Christmas, whatever you want to call it. And I ended up going to the mall shopping, and then everybody else was at work, and you hit me up, and we had some exchange of words, and, we got into it. But it was like he was talking about, that high intensity atmosphere that was like, yo, it's killer be killed. Like, especially for you and I, we just moved across the fucking country. Right. Like I drove 24 fucking hours, took a leap of faith. I was about to go play football a couple months ago, and now I'm here doing mortgages and like working fucking 60 hours a week. No clue. Like I literally remember I did not know what an appraisal was. I didn't know anything. And you had already kind of went through it. So it was almost like it was kind of comical to you and to see it from that perspective. But I remember whether it was day 1 or 2 or 3, I mean, it wasn't more than that. I got script on my desk, and you're like, no, pick up that phone, bro. And I remember sitting there like hitting mute, like, yo, what's the answer to this? And, it made you so uncomfortable. But, that's where I think really I learned the power of living outside your comfort zone,
right,
and what that can do for you. And I think about it in the same sense, like, where would I be had I not gone through that? Because now it's like, I got out of the mortgage game and came back into it at arguably one of the most difficult times in the last couple decades. But it was like, because I had experienced that and went through it, it was like, is this going to be tough? Is this going to be a bitch? Yeah, but I know I can do it. And several months later, I'm right back to where I was. And, I think that, to see you go from that to where you're at now is a testament to going through that first level, and then from there. So like, I also remember, so we're down in Houston working 60, 70 hours a week, whatever the case may be, probably more than that, we're with Supreme Lending at the time. And, our target market is turn down loans at the time. Right. So I remember when Supreme came in that day, and it was like a drug bust.
Yeah.
Corporate guys walked into the office, 2 big ass offensive linemen, black dudes, dreads, whole 9 yards. They go and talk for the office. The dudes are standing out there, and an hour later, they're like, pack up the computers.
Yep.
Right. And that's when movement got introduced to us. So talk a little bit about that experience, and just like, I know we obviously didn't go with movement right then, but just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, man. So so the guy that we were working for, we'd probably worked for 3 different lenders in the year that we were with him. So it was like Bank of England, Supreme Lending, and there was an American Southwest Mortgage, were the 3 companies that he had been with. But yeah, man, I'll never forget that day when they rolled in, and I don't even necessarily know exactly why they shut us down. I think that's a secret that we may never know. I think there was someone unlicensed that was originating. I think we won't get into speculation, but it was just crazy to see that, and everyone's freaking out. Like, what's our next move? Where are we going to go? And obviously, they, our branch manager or the owner or whatever started interviewing multiple lenders and whatnot. And one of the lenders that did a presentation for us was Chris Blevins, who was a regional for Movement out in Texas at the time. He's no longer with Movement. A great guy. Came out, did the song and dance for us. And, I fell in love with the company on the spot, and I started researching Movement and Casey. And here I am, a loan officer that has very limited knowledge, but has work ethic. And I just don't know the guidelines, and with our experience, we're just handing out pre-quals and seeing what sticks to the wall. And our fallout rate was very high. With Movement, they're like, hey, we'll upfront underwrite this thing in 6 hours. I'm like, what? Like, I don't have to know everything. I just got to get the customer to apply, then submit it to an underwriter who's the actual decision maker, and they'll give us a full-blown decision within 6 hours. I'm like, nothing sounds better to me at this point in my career than Movement. Right. And at the time, the lenders that we were working with, Supreme was quick, but like American Southwest Mortgage, Bank of England, they were taking all of 60 to 90 days to like underwrite a loan and close it, and Movement saying they can close in 7 days.
Yeah.
So that's when we first heard about Movement, and I don't know what got into me at that point in time, but I just started blowing up Casey, our CEO, on LinkedIn with messages and saying, hey man, like, give us a shot. He kind of like ghosted me at first. Probably wait, like he responded initially, and then there was like a 3 to 4 month gap where nothing happened. And then I followed up with him again. And finally, like, we got a phone call, and me, you, and GMAC flew down to corporate to, do the interview with them. But it's kind of crazy how all that just came out of nowhere. And like, we're trying to sell Movement on establishing a location in Pittsburgh, where these 3 young guys, that like are working out of Texas. But don't worry, Casey and Movement, like we're actually moving back to Pittsburgh in a couple months, and you don't have a location there. So, you should give us a shot. So far-fetched, all around, but it's just crazy how the stars aligned. And now I've been at Movement almost 8 years. So,
and I think that's such like, there's so many layers to that story that are so important for, especially I feel like entrepreneurs in general, just like starting out, is like, one, the work ethic, obviously, that was instilled to you in you when you started in the mortgage business, but two, just like shooting your shot and taking risk and being willing to, put your money where your mouth is. Because I remember when we got shut down by Supreme, like I was only there for 6 months. I'm like, yo, you just moved me out here, bro. Like, and now we ain't got a job. Like we went a solid, like, almost, I think, 30 to 60 days without being with another lender.
We're collecting unemployment.
And I couldn't get it because I hadn't made enough yet. And thankfully I had saved some money and, what I'm saying, you helped me out and whatnot. But it was like the fact that we were able to make it through that to then go to Bank of England. And I think we were actually about to sign on with another bank that we were like talking with, and then right at the last second we ended up going with Bank of England. And at that time we were also planning a move to Pittsburgh, and like the stars aligned. Like Capital One gave me a raise on my credit and all this shit, and like I was living off credit cards and like just praying to God that this all worked out. And I remember when we interviewed with Movement and like you was geeked, like that's all you talked about for the next like week. And I'm like, to me, like that shit means nothing. Like I'd only been in mortgages for 2-3 months. Like I think I might have just closed my first loan. Like I have no idea what's even going on still in the grand scheme of things. But your Movement this, Movement that, you reach out to the CEO, you're showing me like, yo, we're going with Movement. And we end up going with Bank of England. We moved to Pittsburgh. Like you said, nothing comes about it for a few months. A few months go by, we start missing close dates. And at that time, we were still strictly online lead based, but you were just starting to like flirt with agents.
Right.
And I think maybe you had met the one agent who had just started sending you business. And I think that also kind of like changed your perspective on things. And then I don't know if it was a certain loan that missed or what, but you ended up reaching back out to Casey. Casey hit you back. You pitched him on fucking 3. I think we was 24, 25, whatever we were at the time. Like, hey, we may not know everything, but we're going to put in the work.
Right.
Here's what we've done. And I'm pretty sure you even fabricated some of your numbers to fluff them up, make it look like you was producing a little more than we were. And they flew us down there, and I'll never forget it. Like, you was on my ass. That was when G-Mac ironed my shirt. You had to make sure we was clean. We came with the little paper folder. Yep. We was walking through, and I remember, we were like, you think corporate, right? We're going to corporate headquarters. Like you're suit and tied up and you're looking for what you imagine corporate being. And we pull up in the Uber. I think we were in like a big ass Uber black SUV, and Movement looks like Google.
Yeah.
And we're like, ooh, like this is dope. And we walk in, and it's one of their fucking Friday morning meetings, and it's like a big ass party in there. And if I remember correctly, somebody there like knew where Bona's was or something for some odd reason. And we ended up interviewing, and the rest of it, we come back. I remember the flight back and, driving down the 376 back to Pius Street and just being like, yo, we about to do this. Like, this is crazy. I still had to get my license at the time because Bank of England was FDIC. And
dude, we went to like Sky Bar in Southside that night.
We got bottle service.
We're telling like the bartenders and the bottle service people like, we're going to be here every weekend. Yeah. Like we're going to entertain clients here. We're about to take over the mortgage scene in Pittsburgh. Yeah. Never went back to Sky Bar after that night. But it was the wildest part about that story of like going down to Movement was Darren Pennington, who was the like head of sales at the time, took us out to lunch, and we sat down at lunch. It was me, you, and Greg. And I had this folder of like our production over the last 12 months. And I literally like hand it to him to show him like how much volume we're doing. And on paper, I think it was between $1 million to like maybe $2.5 million a month for the last 12 months, which in the mortgage business, like that's not bad. Like that's solid. And it's profitable. And so, but what we didn't tell them, like what we fabricated or I call it, I just didn't disclose, is all of that business was from online leads that we would no longer receive if we went to Movement. So like we got them to show that we were legit based on this business that we would no longer get. So I think the craziest thing was like, we had zero business. We didn't know anyone in Pittsburgh, really. Yep. We didn't have any aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers that, could put us in touch with like a huge source of mortgages. So I think the craziest thing was just the fact that like we got the job and then it was like, oh shit, how do we how are we going to get mortgages now?
Yeah.
Like, how are we going to, we got to find a way. And it was just like, our backs were against the wall, or our reputations were on the line. So it's like, we had no place to go but up, in my opinion. And we just hustled through it and found and forged a way, basically.
Yeah, no, it was wild because, like you said, we completely flipped business models from, I know I wake up every day knowing I got 10, 20 leads in my inbox. I got to call them leads. I got to follow up with the other ones. And that's that. Like, are we 100% commission? Yes. But I at least know that I got business coming in.
Right.
I don't have business coming in. I don't know where it's coming from. I also don't know how to get it because I've never done it before, but we got to figure it out. And I remember sitting down with you and GMAC, as we got started, and we would have weekly meetings and whatnot to, review the past week and what are you doing, what's working, what's not. And I mean, we were at open houses and cold calls. You name it, any way to get in front of agents. We blew it up on social media. I think, that was really the main source. And like, now you look at social media and everybody's doing it. But at that time, like, it was us.
Right.
There was a couple agents maybe on there, maybe taking a video. A lot of them were, posting and whatnot. But we was really the first people, in my opinion, at least around here, to put ourselves out there. And that's what got us the opportunities. And I remember you were a little bit, obviously, more seasoned and a lot more attentive to detail than I was. But we were just out there running around, especially me, running around like a chicken with my head cut off, like, give me a shot, give me a shot, give me a shot. I'll figure it out later. And obviously we did, we're still here. But, to go from, okay, we're in Houston, that was a 12-month process, tops, to now we're a movement at probably 18 months into your career, like less than a year into my career, to a year later, you hit President's Club and I'm doing over 10 million. Like the timing on that, I think, is what's so crazy and what's so impressive. And what I think ultimately, I'm super proud of is the way that we were able to take that from 0 to 100. And really what it wasn't because we were mortgage experts. It was because we fucking put our heads down and instilled that Mamba mentality and just grinded fucking through it.
Yeah.
And then you go from, $1 million a month to $2 million a month to now all of a sudden a few years later, you're doing 100 fucking million. Yeah. So like, talk about like that transition. Like, obviously we got to movement, but just like, what took you from 1 million to 2 million to 5 million? Like, I remember when you hit your first $5 million month, and that was like, yo, it's fucking game time. And like, most people, like even me, I hit a $2-3 million month, whatever it was. And I was like, it's time to party. I'm going traveling, whatever. But you were like, nah, like, I'm locked in, I'm focused. Like, I'm trying to hit 100 million. And just kind of talk about that growth and transition.
Yeah, man. I think, it's just like the leaderboard, being competitive, from the sports background, you just, it's no matter what, you're never satisfied. And every day you wake up and hustle like you're broke. And that's basically what I've always done. And I never let money, pile up in my bank account to this day. Like, it's in the investments or it's in the real estate or whatever. So it's like, truly, like, I look at my bank account and I'm like, there ain't shit in there, So like, just waking up every day with that mentality and, consistency stacks. A lot of people, real estate agents, mortgage loan officers, they, especially in 2020, 2021 was when it was a lot of people's best years of mortgage because of the refinances that were worked in with the low rate. So a lot of people, man, like, they stopped working, it's like I don't know what the saying is, it's like you kind of get fat and it's like, you just think it's going to be that easy forever. So I think that created an opportunity for the people that stayed consistent. And once again, it's cliche, but like, year after year, it was just like, how do we continue to climb the leaderboard? Like, I want to be number one at movement, and then I want to be number one in the state of Pennsylvania. And then like, I don't think I ever want to be like a Shant who's like number one in the country. That at that point, you're just so out of touch. You don't actually like talk to your clients. It's impossible. But, fast forward to today, like, I think we're number 2 in the state of Pennsylvania. We've been number 1 in Pittsburgh the last 4 years, 3 or 4 years in a row for home buyers closed. There's been a couple. I think there's been one guy that's beat me on total volume once you work in refis, but just based on buyers closed in greater Pittsburgh area, no one's done more than me in the last 3 or 4 years. Yeah. So it's stacked, man. And it's just been consistency and hard work. And, you figure out new systems, you get, better people. You each day you're trying to improve by 1%. If you do that year after year and day after day, week, month, like that really stacks up. And then you just become seasoned. And now it's like, I worked more in Houston, Texas when I think I made $70,000 in my first year in Texas. I worked more then than I do now. So it's like you utilize systems and process, and you build relationships with the right people, and it just stacks, man. And it's been a grind, don't get me wrong, but it's really just been like, show up every day. Yep. Show up every day, be a human, give it your best. You're going to make mistakes. When you make a mistake, raise your hand, own it. Don't point fingers, own it, do what you got to do to fix it. And I think just eating the frog early, do the hardest thing in your day, first thing in the morning. If you mess something up, eat the frog, call the client, tell the bad news. So many people are just scared to have that difficult conversation. So I think kind of those qualities and just the commitment to showing up every day is really the only thing that I've done. I'm not the smartest loan officer, in the state of Pennsylvania. I'm not the best loan officer probably, but it's more of just the cliche consistency, discipline. So
yeah. So now, you're at 100 million. How do you wake up every day? I know you talked about, not having the money and, keeping the money in your bank account, but for somebody at your level, right? You're the top tier in Pittsburgh, top tier in the state, top tier in the country for real. How do you find the motivation to still go up and get after it as if you just moved to Houston, Texas?
It's crazy, man. The motivation changes, right? So 2015, it was 6 figures, purely money. That was it. Purely money motivated. And over the years, the motivation definitely changes. So probably for the first 3-4 years of my career in mortgage, so this starts in Texas, then translates to movement in Pittsburgh, mainly money motivated. And that was it. Wasn't married, no kid, didn't really have a big team. And then probably when I got to year 4, it was the motivation really became okay, I'm secure. I have enough money to keep the lights on, live in a nice house, not have to worry about how you're going to make ends meet. And then it became for me, I built a team of people that basically bet on me if they're working on the team. Right. So Greg McBride, Greg Morandi, Melissa Summerford, Chris Douglas, some of the people that came on board, they're relying on me to produce, because if I don't produce, they don't have jobs. No. So that really became the motivation for me is holy crap, I have people that are relying on me to pay their bills. I cannot let them down. If I don't feel like it today, I got to think of them, and that will motivate me to do what I got to do. And then fast forward to now, it's just magnified, you got a wife, you got a kid, you have people on your team that have kids. Greg has 3 kids. Greg Morandi has a kid and a wife. Melissa has a husband and a son. And, just all of that is magnified now to where it's all right, guys, we're here working every day. Why don't we all just decide to go beast mode, and why don't we just try to double our volume? Because if we really focus on a goal, we really all pull the rope in the same direction and have each other's back, I think we can hit any number that we set as the target. Yeah. So now our meetings are around how can we double? And it sounds crazy, and it is crazy, and maybe we never do it, but it's I'll tell you one thing, if you don't set a goal at all and you don't focus on something, you have 0 chance. Yeah. So maybe we only have a 25% chance of hitting our new goal, but the motivation now is purely of supporting the people that have made the commitment to be on the team and work hard every day to support the team is really what motivates me nowadays is just working for them. And you wake up every morning, you have a kid. The why doesn't get much stronger or deeper than that. So that's been obviously a blessing. It's been super cool to see the baby every day and have a deeper why outside of, hey, let's make six figures.
Yeah.
So
no, for sure. And I think that, I remember you also used to be the market leader, and at a young age. And that was, one of the things that I think also really helped mold you in learning how to be that fearless leader was, you're a 20, 25, 26-year-old leading men and women with families and kids as well, not just your own team on top of that. And you're not only dealing with your problems, you're dealing with theirs. And, to be able to become that leader and still be able to focus on your own production in life, and now to have a wife and a child and all the rest of it, like that takes a lot of effort and a lot of discipline, a lot of consistency and all the rest of it. And, a lot of people fall off during those times. And I think it's super impressive what you've been able to do and continue to accomplish despite all the changes and obstacles that life throw at you. And I think that's something that's super important to know and understand, is that, the world don't stop.
Right.
And when you have a goal in mind, like, set the goal, work it backwards. And things are going to change along the way. It's inevitable. You can't control that. You have to control what you can control. And I think you've done a great job of that. And really, again, in its simplest form, it's waking up every fucking day and doing what you know you have to do.
Well, I think too, like, it's the John Maxwell, one of my favorite quotes, anything worthwhile is an uphill climb. And I think a lot of people, when they face any sort of resistance, it's in our human nature and in our brains to retreat. Yeah. And it's like, how do you rewire your brain to like face the resistance and then know that, like, all right, this isn't going to be fun, but like, we're going to keep pushing through because everybody wants the achievements. Everyone wants to make a ton of money and have great success. And, but when it comes to seeing any sort of resistance, a lot of people throw in the towel, right? So it's like, how do you overcome that and find a way to move forward? I think that's the hardest thing that somehow over time that myself and my team have found a way to overcome that and embrace the suck.
That's real. You have to, like, it's just the fact of the matter is not every day is going to be fucking sweet and sugar and candy. Like, you're going to go through bullshit. There's going to be obstacles that get thrown at you. You're going to get cussed out. You're going to, deal with whatever. And you have to be able to overcome that and still stay on your path and stay focused.
The truest statement of all time, Biggie Smalls, mo money, mo problems is the truest thing. Like, at any level of achievement, as you're climbing the ladder of success, as you're making, $5,000 more in the next paycheck versus last month, there's going to be more problems that come with it. And a lot of people just aren't cool with those problems that come with it. So you got to find the person that can handle the most is rewarded the most, and it's so hard in the moment because you just want to give up. You just want to quit and throw in the towel. But if you can find a way to embrace that and rewire your mind, I think that's what's going to really differentiate you, in this, big world of employment and opportunities. So,
yeah, for sure. So, not too much left that I wanted to touch on, but just kind of, to wrap it up, I do want to talk a little bit about, real estate specifically and kind of like the current state of the market. And obviously, like you had talked about, there was a refi boom a couple of years ago to now rates are high. And I think the golden question that everybody asks 24/7, 365 is, when are rates going to come down? Like, what's your prediction for the market? And just kind of talk about the state of the real estate market.
Yeah, man, I think every time I get the question about rates, I reply and say, if I knew the answer to that question, I'd be making millions on Wall Street and we would not be talking. But my more serious answer is, the Fed is, projected to cut rates. I think closer to summertime is like the Barry Habib projection and what the Fed has talked about. So when that happens, we should see a relief in mortgage rates. I think personally, my prediction is like mid fives post election. So going into 2025, I think we'll see rates somewhere in the 5% range. I don't think low fives. I think mid to upper is probably where we'll land. The days of people wait, I'm not buying till we get 2, 3, 4%. I highly doubt we'll ever see that again. And the general thing here is like, my advice to home buyers out there and sellers and everything is very simple. It's don't let interest rate predictions drive your decision making on purchasing a home. Buy the home because it's where you want to live with your family. Buy the home because it falls in the right price point. Buy the home because it's the home you truly, truly want to be in. And guess what? If you buy now and rates are 7% and 2 years from now, a year from now, they drop, you can always refinance. And there's so many people sitting on the fences because they're scared of these higher rates, and they're missing out on boatloads of appreciation and equity through amortization. So I think there's a lot of hesitation in the market, which creates opportunities for other home buyers to take advantage. Because when these rates go down, that $350K home is going to be $400,000. Yeah. So all these people think they're saving money waiting for these lower rates, when in reality, your cost of acquisition is going to be $50,000 higher probably. And that lower rate, a percent lower rate, is only going to lead to, maybe $150 a month on your payment. So buy now, get the home at a discount, and then refinance later, stack your appreciation and do it. First-time home buyers that qualify for purchasing, you need to buy based on the home you want. The home owner that's at 2% interest and doesn't have to buy, like they're fine in their current home, I can understand the hesitation of,
absolutely.
Why would we go to a 7% rate until they have to move? I understand why they don't want to sell, right? I get that. But a first-time home buyer that's like, man, I'm waiting for 5%, you're losing so much money on that cost of acquisition being lower right now, and just the appreciation you're losing out on. If you survey any homeowner over the last 5 years, or even 10 years, or 20 years, 30 years, there's not going to be one person that took a massive loss in the greater Pittsburgh area, or even in the tri-state area. Like, these areas aren't bubble markets.
Right.
This Cali, Vegas, some places like that are more bubble markets, but tri-state, Pittsburgh, upstate New York, like, they're not bubble markets. It's pretty even, like 3 to 5% appreciation over 20 years. So it's like, anyone that's bought a home $250K and up over the last 5 years, they're going to sell 5 years from the date they bought it. They're cashing out almost 6 figures. Yeah. So it's like, what are you worried about a 7% rate? And the last thing I'll say is, if you look at the average rates over the last 20 to 30 years, it's about 7%. These are, right. I don't even consider these rates high. I think they're a little bit above where we'd want them to settle for a longer period of time. So if you look back over the last 10 years at the 30-year fixed mortgage rate, it hovered around like 5 to 5.5 to 4.5% has kind of been the range. So we're basically right now trending 1 to 2% above where I think we'll settle. And we're just not going to buy real estate because we think rates are high. 7% aren't a high rate. It's where rates should be. It's just we were spoiled from those all-time lows.
Yeah, and there's so many people, like you said, sitting on the sideline, and like you had kind of talked about, the person who has the 2-3% rate from a couple years ago, sure, I completely understand why you would want to sit and not sell your house and incur the additional costs and lose that rate and what have you. The person who doesn't own, like, there's nothing that you can tell me that's going to justify in my head why you should be renting and not buying. Correct. Because, the power of ownership in itself, there's so much to be said from that, and what equity and appreciation and all the rest of it can do. And what they also don't understand is, the state of the mortgage industry, and most of these lenders are losing money. So they're all creating these weird programs to try and generate business. So they're offering lots of incentives for people who are sitting on the sidelines to say, hey, come in, buy. We know rates are high, right? That's cool. I get it. They're going to come down at some point. When they do, we got you. Right. And people are just ignoring that. Yep. And it's like, they're so gung-ho on what they see on Instagram and what they see on TikTok and what this popular person is saying, who may not have a fucking clue about real estate, but because they saw it on an Instagram ad, it's like, oh, now I'm an expert and there's no way that we should buy right now because rates are just too high, when they're not considering all of the other factors.
Yeah, they're definitely listening to the media and uneducated people on the topic, because at the end of the day, survey any homeowner over the last 10 years and tell me how many people took an L in the tri-state area, and there's certainly not that many. So it's like, buy real estate and wait. It's such a cliche thing you see online and stuff, but it's so true. And if you have the ability to buy, you can get pre-approved and you continue to rent. If you're paying more than $1,500 a month in rent, and you're continue to rent, I mean, you're losing money every single day. If you're one of those people that has like a sweetheart rental deal and you're paying $300-400 a month, like obviously that's hard to beat, right? But for most people, like buying and owning is always going to make out better over a 2, 3, 4, 5 year run of ownership.
Well, and I remember, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, a friend of ours was kind of going at you on social media about, you marketing your business and insisting that people buy. And I would love to look at the numbers from when he was coming at you to now and see what the cost of waiting would be today, because I truly believe, and I'm very confident that the numbers would back this, that you would be losing out if you would have followed his advice and not bought, versus if you would have bought then 2 years ago or whatever it was, and what that house would be worth today and the cost of what waiting actually would have been, and
it's uneducated people that are not licensed in the industry that have the biggest opinions. And, I got 4 Alta statements I can show from sales, that will prove how a real appreciation is. And, but people are always going to have their opinions, right? And they're entitled to that. And that's great. But at the end of the day, you want to see a cost of waiting analysis from Barry Habib that shows appreciation worked in, inflation that really takes every little detail to show you like how much you're losing out on, even at a 7% rate. It's very real. It's very real. If you're going to buy and sell in a year, okay, like, yeah, you keep renting, but like if you buy and hold, like there's no way you're going to lose over the long run. And the benefit is you buy that 350 home today at that lower acquisition price and rates drop to 5.5% a year from now. Well, now you secured that home at that lower price. You save $50,000. Now you're refining and grabbing the lower rate, and now you're winning on both ends. Yeah, there is a cost to refinance, right? It's typically, depending on the rate savings, could be a 12 to 24 month break even point on refinancing. But once again, if you hold long term, it truly is a no brainer.
No, I agree 100%, and that's the biggest thing that I try and portray to anybody, whether it's a customer, a friend, whoever, is like, yo, yeah, rates are high. What are you going to do about it? I have no control over it. You have no control over it. And if you're going to sit here on the sidelines and wait for rates to go to 4% or 3% or 5%, what if that fucking day never comes? Right. Because it's probably not. They're going to drop at some point, sure. But, you sitting on the sidelines waiting for this to change is not going to do anything. And, the reality is too, it's like, okay, so you're paying this higher rate. If you pay it for 12, 24 months, how much do you actually accumulate in interest over the course of that 12 to 24 months?
It's so minimal.
So that's all I really had, man. Cool. Is there anything else you want to touch on? You want to talk about anything? You could just,